Disclaimer: this video is for educational and informational purposes only. All information presented is based on publicly available sources including news reports, court records, and official statements. This channel does not make accusations against any individual and presumes innocence until proven guilty by a court of law. Viewer discretion is advised. Names and details are presented as reported in the public domain. When a sense of entitlement collides with deep-seated resentment, what kind of darkness can bloom within? Can the very people we invite into our homes become the architects of our deepest fears, driven by a twisted logic that blurs the lines between grievance and atrocity? The perpetrator in this case, Rahul Meena, a 23-year-old former domestic help, presents a disturbing, albeit not entirely uncommon, psychological profile. His actions suggest a strong undercurrent of entitlement, potentially fueled by a sense of perceived injustice or a deep-seated belief that he was owed something more by the family he served. This can often be linked to traits associated with the dark triad: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Narcissism would manifest as an inflated sense of self-importance and a lack of empathy, leading him to view the victim and her family as mere objects to be manipulated or exploited. Machiavellianism would explain the calculated use of insider knowledge, the spare key, the understanding of routines to achieve his goals. Crucially, the presence of psychopathic traits, such as impulsivity, superficial charm, and a profound lack of remorse, would enable him to commit such a heinous act. The prior sexual assault in Rajasthan further complicates this profile, hinting at a pattern of predatory behavior and a disregard for societal norms and the well-being of others. Such individuals often operate with a distorted sense of reality, where their own desires and perceived slights take precedence over the fundamental rights and lives of others. Their ability to feign normalcy and build trust, as he likely did with the family, is a hallmark of this dangerous psychological makeup. The most chilling aspect of such crimes is often the presence of missed warning signs. In the case of individuals exhibiting traits of the dark triad or psychopathy, these signs can be subtle, but are often present to those who are attuned. For Rahul Meena, perhaps the initial warning signs were his interactions with the family. Did he display an unusual sense of familiarity or entitlement? Were there instances of manipulation or subtle attempts to gain leverage? His gambling debts, while a financial problem, can also be a psychological indicator of impulsivity and a desperate need for quick gratification, traits that often accompany a disregard for consequence. Furthermore, the prior sexual assault in Rajasthan, if known to anyone, would have been a monumental red flag. The failure to recognize or act upon such a serious incident demonstrates a critical breakdown in observational awareness and intervention. Often, people tend to dismiss unpleasant behaviors as mere personality quirks or youthful indiscretion, especially when the individual presents as outwardly charming or subservient. This tendency to rationalize or minimize concerning behavior, a form of cognitive dissonance, can leave individuals vulnerable. The grooming process, where an offender slowly builds trust and manipulates their victim's perception, can also be a subtle but present warning sign, often masked by apparent kindness or helpfulness. The brutal rape and murder of the 22-year-old civil services aspirant by Rahul Meena is a stark manifestation of a profound psychological breakdown, driven by a potent cocktail of motives. The primary driver appears to be revenge. The underlying resentment, perhaps stemming from his dismissal from domestic help or a perceived slight from the IRS officer's family, festered into a desire for retribution. This grievance, amplified by his narcissistic tendencies, would have created a distorted narrative in his mind, where he felt justified in inflicting pain. Coupled with this is the motivation of greed, specifically to fund his gambling debts. This dual motivation, emotional vengeance and financial desperation, creates a dangerous confluence. Forensic psychology suggests that offenders driven by a combination of these factors often exhibit a sense of power and control over their victims. The act of rape itself can be an expression of dominance and a way to debase the victim, reflecting a profound lack of empathy and a desire to inflict psychological as well as physical damage. The use of insider knowledge, the spare key, points to a premeditated act, allowing him to bypass security and exploit the victim's presumed safety within her own home. This calculated approach, combined with the extreme violence, speaks to a personality that compartmentalizes morality and is capable of severe brutality when its perceived needs or grievances are not met. The investigation into such a crime heavily relies on piecing together not just the physical evidence, but the psychological footprint left behind. Forensic psychology plays a crucial role in understanding the offender's mindset. Investigators would have looked for patterns of behavior, the selection of the victim, and the method of the crime to build a profile of the perpetrator. The use of the spare key, for instance, points towards an offender with insider knowledge, narrowing down the suspect pool significantly. The prior sexual assault in Rajasthan would have been a critical piece of evidence, establishing a pattern of behavior and potentially linking him to the current crime. The legal proceedings would then focus on proving intent, the premeditated nature of the act, and the psychological state of the accused at the time of the crime. Understanding concepts like intent and mens rea, guilty mind, are central to the justice system, and forensic psychologists can provide expert testimony to illuminate these aspects. The eventual verdict, whether conviction or acquittal, hinges on the prosecution's ability to demonstrate beyond a reasonable doubt that the accused committed the crime, often with the help of psychological profiling to understand motive and opportunity. This case serves as a stark reminder of the importance of recognizing and addressing warning signs, both in individuals and in our own environments. The concept of grooming is particularly relevant here. Offenders often build trust slowly, presenting as helpful or friendly, gradually manipulating their way into a position of power or access. We must be vigilant about the behavior of those we employ in our homes and communities, looking beyond superficial charm for genuine respect and ethical conduct. The tendency to dismiss concerning behavior as nothing, or just the way they are, is a dangerous form of complacency. Open communication and a willingness to address uncomfortable truths are vital. Furthermore, societal structures play a role. Inadequate support systems for individuals struggling with addiction or mental health issues, coupled with a lack of robust background checks for domestic staff, can create vulnerabilities. Education about abusive and manipulative behaviors, and fostering environments where people feel safe to report concerns without fear of retribution, are crucial steps in preventing such tragedies. The echoes of this tragedy resonate with the chilling reality of how easily trust can be weaponized. The question remains, are we, as a society, truly equipped to recognize the subtle shifts in behavior that signal a brewing storm? Have you ever encountered behaviors that, in retrospect, were clear warning signs? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. And if you found this analysis insightful, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more.